Andy McNamara joining us now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Andy is the National Fantasy Sports Analyst for SportsNet, as well as DraftKings NFL Analyst. And DraftKings wants to let you know that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and DraftKings is partnered with All-Pro wide receiver Larry Fitzgerald's First Down Fund to raise money for cancer research and support a cause that extends beyond the sidelines or end zones. All Pink'em contest entry fee profits are being donated to the First Down Fund, as these games for Goodwill will be available each Sunday in October. 4 in total. So far, they have raised $70,000 at the half point through this month. So 2 more weeks for you to help donate to a great cause, as Andy McNamara joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Andy, how you doing today?
Josh, I'm doing good, brother. How are you?
I'm doing well. I know it's been a few weeks since we've spoken, and I feel like the entire NFL season has kind of evolved into a lot more of what we know and less about what we think we're going to see. So, I got to get from you, before we get into anything specifically, I just want to get from you, is there a player, is there a team, is there a situation, is there a storyline that stands out to you most so far?
I think the Buffalo Bills, from the positive standpoint. And I expected Josh Allen to take a nice step forward, but the way that team has played, especially defensively, the way they still lost, to New England. But you held Brady and company to 16 points. And I know that Patriots offense hasn't been what it used to be, at least up to this point in the season. But this Bills team, boy, man, I'm telling you, if they could stay healthy, you keep Josh Allen on the field, and he can be a little bit smarter with his body and not sacrificing it so much. Heck, you know what? They get into the wild card, and that defense shows up and shows out. Who knows?
The thing with the Bills also is that, you see who their head coach is. This is a guy who, in our area, and he got ran out of town. He was basically became a scapegoat for a situation that wasn't his fault on the defensive side.
Right.
He goes to Carolina. He helps build a defense that got them to a Super Bowl. He's now in Buffalo, and it seems like he's brought the same mentality that he had in Carolina, Buffalo, whereas they say, look, even if our offense isn't going to go out there and score a lot, which they're inconsistent at times, and we at least know our defense can keep us in games, or we're going to bring that mentality into every matchup.
Exactly. And it's not necessarily the highest profile defense as far as star power names, or they don't get as much hype as, let's say, how well the Patriots side is doing. But that defense can hang with absolutely anybody. And on top of that, we talk about the offense. You get Devin Singletary back from injury, their rookie running back, who in limited time so far this year has been very explosive. You got the old dog Frank Gore in the backfield too. And if we're talking for fantasy side, I am loading up on Buffalo Bills against the 32nd ranked Miami Dolphins when it comes to giving up fantasy points to running backs. I'm going Singletary, I'm going Allen, and I'm going John Brown as long as he's healthy.
Nice. Andy, in our area, the neck of the woods, we are the Eagles radio affiliate down here in South Jersey. So the Eagles-Cowboys game, it's a huge game on a lot of people's minds in our area, not just because of the rivalry, but because there's a lot of implications. Whoever wins this game is probably going to be in the driver's seat long-term for the division. What are your thoughts and analysis of this matchup?
I think it is going to be absolutely fascinating, and for different reasons than I thought it would be a couple of weeks ago. Because a couple of weeks ago, you had the Cowboys flying high, right? They were cruising. You had Eagles won 2 in a row, right? And now it's like, okay, well, now everybody's at 3-3. And I think you're right. It comes to a point of who's going to control this division? Who's going to step up? From the Cowboys side, it's what happened to this offense? It's simply they played bad teams early in any sort of competition, and that offense falls flat. If that's the case, it's going to be a long day and a low-scoring game if they're going to put up any points against the Eagles. Or just a bit of a blip, and you get Amari Cooper might play a bit, but Michael Gallup, who I really like on the fantasy side as a WR2, and maybe with an increased workload as well, he could really pop. And Zeke Elliott. Then for the Eagles, all revolves, of course, around Carson Wentz. And you see how he has been able to bounce back. And when it comes to Wentz, I still feel he hasn't hit his full stride. I think once we get to the Thanksgiving time And if he can stay healthy there, we're going to see, I think, Carson Wentz take it to a different level and really start to kickstart this offense and everything going. There are things you could complain about from each side, but this will at least be that first phase to say, okay, who's going to take control of this division?
We were talking a little bit earlier, Andy, about the two quarterbacks, especially. These both drafted in the same year, both started their careers week 1 of 2016. Where do you stand on the Wentz versus Prescott debate?
Oh, it's got to be Wentz right now. When, and I'll preface this by saying when he is on the field. Dak Prescott has been much more durable. If Carson Wentz goes a few more weeks and gets injured again, then you have to firmly and maybe permanently slap that injury tag on him. But when they are both healthy and going, Carson Wentz is the better quarterback to me, hands down. Prescott, we've seen, I think does a nice job in that system. If everything is clicking the right way, the run first. He's got a little bit of mobility and can work the outside receivers a bit. But if you're talking about pure talent and guys that can produce, and I think more importantly, if you need somebody, if you're down to come back, I'm going Carson Wentz all day.
It's interesting you say that because there's still people in our area who are still what I call the Foles believers. They're the people who they still swear on Nick Foles because he won you the Super Bowl. And I think that can you talk to some of these people who look at Wentz and they're saying, "See, Wentz didn't do this or Wentz didn't do that." Can you kind of talk a little sanity to some of these people?
Here's the you guys had the best quarterback situation in football. You had Nick Foles, who really can only find success, it seems, in Philadelphia. As soon as he leaves city limits, it's over. I don't know what is. It's like a Cinderella, right? The pumpkin gets turned back from the carriage there. But it's like for Nick Foles, he was, when we saw him in crunch time, come playoffs and come when it's going into a Super Bowl time and playoff time and all that, he was great. But when it was regular season in the beginning, we kind of got reminded what Nick Foles was, and that is a low-end starter, high-end backup. It almost would have been a perfect situation, similar to like a reliever in football. You have Carson Wentz play weeks 1 through 15, and then have Nick Foles go the rest of the way. But for full-time, Carson Wentz, he's younger. You spent that draft capital on him. He has all the tools. The question remains, can he stay healthy for a full season after the last couple have gone south on him? If he does, you still have a premier franchise quarterback, which Nick Foles, quite honestly, is not. Would I love to have Nick Foles on my roster as that safety net backup? Absolutely. He still has a tremendous value there, and he proved that, obviously, going to win a Super Bowl. But you can't argue. When healthy, Carson Wentz, come on.
Andy McNamara joining me on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline on 97.3 ESPN, National Fantasy Sports Analyst for SportsNet, and DraftKings NFL Analyst joining us here on Sports Bash Saturday. Andy, when we were talking about a little bit about Michael Gallup earlier, what about the people who have dealt with some of these tight end injuries? I mean, Will Dissly, torn Achilles, out for the year. A couple of weeks ago was in David Njoku of the Browns.
Mm-hmm.
Where do people go for tight end help? Because it seems like if you're somebody's playing fantasy, I'm in 2 leagues. I know a lot of our listeners are out there in different leagues. Man, what do people do about tight end? Because if you're someone who's trying to find a tight end and you go to that waiver wire, you're either one of 2 predicaments. You either have no clue who they are, or you're like me and you look at them and I'm like, do I really want to grab Jason Witten, of all people, off of the waiver wire?
Right. And that's why DraftKings is so great, because you're never in that predicament, right, Josh?
Right.
You can pick whichever tight end you want the whole time. And this is why, especially the injury to Pat Mahomes and how the effectiveness will dwindle, most likely, maybe not, but most likely, of Travis Kelce in already a razor-thin position group. It was devastating. So really, to me, if you're looking at guys to pick up, as you said, it is slim. Dissly, I had Will Dissly as my sleeper pick for a DraftKings article before it was cool, but way back at the beginning of the season. And he really stood up and quietly made some noise. Now he's gone. Luke Wilson, we're not replacing with Luke Wilson. I love Luke Wilson. I've interviewed Luke Wilson in person. Great dude. Not for fantasy purposes. Sorry. I'd say one of the best guys you can pick up if he's still there, and he should still be available on probably about half of Yahoo Fantasy League wires, is Darren Fells of the Texans. Somebody now you got Atkins who kind of squeezes in there a little bit too, but if you're looking at somebody who has produced relatively consistently in PPR formats out of the last 4 weeks, he has at least 12 to 13 fantasy points in each of those, 15.9, then a dip in 2 against Carolina, 16, then 12.9 in the previous 2 seasons. Now, I'm looking here. He's actually only owned in 28% of Yahoo leagues. So Darren Fells would be a guy I would scoop up immediately. It looks like Deshaun Watson and Houston are finally figuring out, oh, yeah, we can throw to a tight end for once. And it seems like they're finally doing that. So Darren Fells would be a top pickup. Doesn't do you any good for this week, but another guy you'd look for maybe going forward, Ricky Seals-Jones of the Cleveland Browns, has really popped in the absence of David Njoku, and he's finding some chemistry with Baker Mayfield. So those are a couple longer-term guys.
You mentioned the situation with the Seahawks with Luke Wilson coming in there. Let's talk about that quarterback, Russell Wilson.
Oh, yeah.
After 6 weeks, is he your MVP?
Yes, he is. He is. I don't even think it's close.
There's people who would say Christian McCaffrey. So it's.
I was going to say outside of quarterback, the next one would be Christian McCaffrey. There, it's for the MVP race. Though it seems like it is so tough for a non-quarterback to win it. So for McCaffrey to do it, I think he's going to have to enter the 1,000 club, 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yards receiving, which it looks doable. Right? Like it's only been done a couple times before. If he does that, you've got to give it to him. But if we're going for the traditional, it's got to be a quarterback, and that's just the way it's been for the last number of years. How do you go away from Russell Wilson, who, I don't know, hasn't thrown an interception, 14 touchdowns, 0 picks? He's rushed in 3 touchdowns as well? What? Like he is just playing at an absolute unreal level, the best of his career. And we're talking about a guy who's won 1 Super Bowl and been to 2. Like and without superstars around, who's he throwing to? Tyler Lockett. I love me some DK Metcalf, but he's still developing, and it's a committee backfield. Like it's remarkable.
Yeah, and it feels like that MVP for Wilson is the one thing missing off of his resume, right? Like he has everything else. You know, he's got the regular season big games and the comeback victories and the Super Bowl ring and the superstar wife and all these different things on who he is, right? And it's like the one thing that's missing is that MVP, and it feels like this really might be the year.
If he keeps going at the pace he is, and he's going to throw an interception, we know that. But if he keeps playing, especially with Pat Mahomes going to miss 4 to 6 weeks, you pretty much take Pat Mahomes out of the MVP race. As far as really, right? You miss over a month of the season. You got to kind of eliminate yourself. Then you start looking, who else is going to pop up? You know, Deshaun Watson's had a nice year. MVP year? I don't think so. You look at Lamar Jackson, still no. You know, you're not Matt Ryan, no, obviously, right? Jimmy Garoppolo, they're winning, but he's not putting up fantastic numbers. Like there's just so many different people where you could poke a lot of holes in them. The one guy I can't poke a hole in is Russell Wilson.
Yeah, the thing with Wilson is he's never thrown more than 11 interceptions in a season. So this big touchdown interception ratio that he has is not a strange thing for him. It's just that he's elevated his game to a whole new level as he only has a 72.5% completion percentage. I mean, that's Drew Brees kind of stuff. That's
sick. Yeah. Oh, and there's another guy you take out of the conversation, Drew Brees, right? Because he's been out for so long. So, yeah, like as long as he stays on the field and doesn't regress terribly, which I don't see happening for any reason. Right now, it's between him and Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey's got, and maybe it's not fair, but McCaffrey has to play at such a level where you cannot ignore that type of production, and he might do it too.
You can follow Andy on Twitter at AndyMC81. That's at AndyMC81. Andy McNamara. He's the National Fantasy Sports Analyst for SportsNet, and he's the DraftKings NFL Analyst, and he's joined us today on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Andy, appreciate your time here on a Saturday.
Anytime, guys. Talk to you soon, buddy.
Take care. And Andy, you got to follow him. He's got a lot of great stuff over there when he works with SportsNet. If you have any fantasy or any other NFL advice, you want to check him out. And DraftKings wants to remind you that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and DraftKings has partnered with All-Pro wide receiver Larry Fitzgerald's First Down Fund to raise money for cancer research and support a cause that extends beyond the sidelines. All Pink'em contest entry fee profits are donated to the First Down Fund, as these games are for goodwill. Available every Sunday this month. You have 2 more NFL weeks to get involved. They've already raised over $70,000 for the All Pink'em contest, so you can get involved with Larry Fitzgerald's First Down Fund by getting on DraftKings tomorrow, getting involved in the All Pink'em contest, as all the entry fee profits are going to raise money for breast cancer research with DraftKings.